Daniel Rothman signed the transfer without reading the number. Another 7 figures gone. Another quiet prayer whispered into a room full of machines that beeped like impatient clocks counting down the lives of his sons. "Please," he murmured, kneeling between the 2 hospital-style beds placed side by side in the east wing of his mansion. "Take everything. Just let them live." Evan lay still, his small chest rising and falling beneath a thin blanket. Eli slept curled on his side, one hand clutching a stuffed lion so tightly its fabric had worn thin. Tubes ran from their arms to machines Daniel barely understood, though he could list their names by heart. He had memorized everything doctors said. He had forgotten how to be anything else but afraid. The richest man in the room had never felt poorer. 3 years earlier, Daniel Rothman had been known for something else entirely. Headlines once called him ruthless, brilliant, unstoppable. He had built his fortune from nothing, turned late nights and broken deals into empires. He used to believe control was the answer to everything. Then his wife died. And 6 months later the twins got sick. The diagnosis came with words Daniel hated. Rare, uncertain, progressive. A neurological condition, they said. One that might worsen with stress, excitement, movement, anything that made children children. The doctors spoke gently, professionally, but Daniel heard only one thing: there is no cure. From that moment, his life shrank to the size of 2 small beds. The Rothman mansion no longer felt like a home. It felt like a private hospital disguised behind marble floors and priceless art. Nurses rotated in 12-hour shifts. Doctors arrived weekly, sometimes daily. Entire rooms were converted into treatment areas. Sunlight was filtered. Noise was controlled. Play was restricted. The twins were not allowed to run. They were not allowed to shout. They were not allowed to forget they were sick. Daniel enforced every rule with the devotion of a man terrified of losing the only people he had left. He watched from doorways, from security cameras, from reports printed each night, and read alone in his study. He measured love in protection, in money, in sacrifice, and he paid whatever was asked. Experimental treatments from Europe. Imported medications that required refrigeration and armed guards. Specialists who charged more for a single consultation than most people earned in a year. When one doctor hesitated, Daniel found another. When hope thinned, he bought more. The world said he was a devoted father. No one saw the cost. Evan and Eli had stopped asking when they could go outside. They had stopped asking why other children went to school. They had learned, quietly, that being still made their father stay longer. Nannies came and went. Some cried. Some quit after a week. Some treated the boys like glass, afraid even to speak too loudly. Daniel rarely noticed. To him, they were background figures in a crisis that never ended. Then Clara Hayes arrived. She didn't arrive with fuss or fear. No trembling hands, no overdone sympathy. She was in her late 20s, with calm eyes and a voice that didn't rise or fall unnecessarily. She read the house rules once, nodded, and asked where the boys were. The head nurse frowned. "They're resting." Clara smiled politely. "Are they sleeping or just expected to be quiet?" The question lingered longer than it should have. When Clara entered the twins' room, she didn't rush to their beds. She sat on the floor instead, cross-legged, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Evan opened one eye. Eli followed a moment later. "You don't look sick," Evan said flatly. Clara tilted her head. "You don't look like a doctor." Eli smiled before he could stop himself. From that first day, Clara did something no one else had done in years. She talked to them like children. She asked about their favorite stories. She listened when they argued over whose turn it was to hold the lion. She didn't hush them every time they laughed, only when it became too loud, and even then she explained why. Daniel noticed the difference by accident. He was watching the monitor feed one evening when he realized something was wrong. The boys were sitting up. Not slumped, not pale. Evan was animated, his hands moving as he explained something. Eli was laughing, actually laughing. Daniel's heart slammed painfully against his ribs. He stormed down the hall, expecting alarms, consequences, danger. Instead, he found Clara reading aloud from a book, doing different voices. The twins were leaning toward her, eyes bright. "What's going on?" Daniel demanded. Clara looked up, unstartled. "A story. They shouldn't be this stimulated." She closed the book calmly. "They asked for it." Daniel looked at his sons. They froze like animals sensing a threat. Guilt hit him hard and sudden. "Keep it short," he said stiffly and left. That night, Clara wrote her first note. Observation: motor control normal. Emotional response strong. Symptoms inconsistent. She kept the notebook hidden in her bag. Over the next weeks, she watched closely. The twins ate well, slept deeply. When relaxed, they showed no signs of weakness or distress. Their hands were steady, their balance intact. During medical checks, however, their bodies seemed to fold inward. Shoulders slumped, voices softened. They became the fragile children everyone expected. One afternoon, while helping Evan with a puzzle, Clara heard him whisper, "If we get better, Daddy will go away again." Her chest tightened. "Why would you think that?" Evan didn't look up. "When we're sick, he stays longer." Clara didn't respond right away. She watched Daniel through the doorway later that day, signing papers while barely glancing at his sons. Love, she realized, had been translated into fear somewhere along the way. She began reviewing schedules, medications, reports left carelessly on counters. Dates didn't align. Symptoms described didn't match what she saw. Progress was always unclear. Deterioration always possible. Uncertainty was profitable. Late one night, Clara stepped into the garden to clear her head. She froze. Evan and Eli were there, barefoot on the grass, running. Not fast, not wild, but free. They laughed in the open air, breathless and alive, their joy unfiltered by machines or rules. Clara watched from the shadows, tears stinging her eyes. These children weren't dying. They were being kept sick, by fear, by silence, by adults who never questioned the story they'd been sold. From an upstairs window, Daniel watched too. For one brief moment, he felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest. Hope and fear, sharp enough to destroy it. He turned away, choosing the comfort of control over the risk of truth. Behind him, the house hummed with machines, unaware that everything was about to change. Clara did not rush the truth. She knew better than to storm into a frightened man's world and tear it apart with accusations. Daniel Rothman had built his life on certainty, on contracts, numbers, guarantees. What he feared most was uncertainty, and nothing was more uncertain than the health of his children. So Clara waited. She watched. She gathered proof quietly, patiently, the way truth often has to move when fear is in charge. She adjusted nothing official at first. She followed every written rule. But between those rules, she changed something far more important. The atmosphere. She let the boys talk about their mother. She let them ask questions without immediately redirecting them to silence. She let them sit in sunlight for a few extra minutes, feel grass between their toes when no one was watching, laugh softly without flinching. And the twins bloomed. Evan's constant headaches never came when they were relaxed. Eli's so-called weakness vanished when he forgot to perform it. No tremors, no collapses, no emergencies, nothing. Clara documented everything. Emotional states, physical responses. She noticed that episodes happened almost exclusively around medical visits or when Daniel was present, when fear thickened the air. One evening, after the boys had fallen asleep, Clara made a call she wasn't supposed to make. She spoke quietly to an old colleague, a pediatric nurse practitioner who owed her a favor and asked no names. Clara read out the diagnosis, the medication list, the treatment plan. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "That diagnosis," the woman finally said, "was revised years ago. It's not considered progressive anymore. In most cases, it resolves on its own." Clara's fingers tightened around the phone. What about the medication? Another pause. Some of that isn't recommended long-term. Could actually cause fatigue, emotional suppression, dependency. Clara ended the call with shaking hands. She sat on the edge of her bed for a long time, staring at the wall. This wasn't just a mistake. Someone had built a lie and fed it with fear. The next morning she sat with Evan and Eli at breakfast. They were unusually quiet. "Can I ask you something?" Clara said gently. Eli nodded. Evan hesitated, then nodded too. "Do you ever pretend to feel worse than you do?" Evan's eyes filled instantly. He looked at his brother, then back at Clara. "We don't want Daddy to be sad," Eli whispered. "When we're sick, he holds our hands." The words struck Clara harder than any medical report ever could. She knelt in front of them, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. "Being better won't make him love you less. And being honest won't make him leave." "But what if it does?" Evan asked, his voice small. Clara swallowed. "Then he needs the truth just as much as you do." The opportunity came sooner than she expected. Daniel returned early from a meeting one afternoon, tension sharp in his posture. Dr. Leonard Voss was scheduled to arrive within the hour for another evaluation. Clara stood in Daniel's path. "Mr. Rothman," she said calmly, "we need to talk before the doctor arrives." He frowned. "Now isn't." "Please," she said, not pleading, firm. "It's about your sons." That stopped him. They sat in the study. Sunlight spilled across the desk where countless checks had been signed in desperation. Clara laid everything out. Her notes, her observations, the inconsistencies, the revised medical information, the off-record confirmation, the emotional patterns, the twins' words. Daniel listened in silence. At first his face hardened. Then his jaw trembled. Then his hands began to shake. "You're saying," he said slowly, "that for 3 years, all of this was unnecessary?" "I'm saying your sons are not dying," Clara replied softly. "They are alive. They are healthy. And they are terrified of losing you." Daniel stood abruptly, pacing. No, this is impossible. Dr. Voss has been paid millions," Clara finished gently. "Fear is expensive." The doctor arrived on schedule. This time Daniel asked questions. Real ones. He asked about outdated criteria, about unnecessary medications, about the lack of improvement despite endless treatment. Dr. Voss faltered. 2 days later, independent specialists confirmed what Clara already knew. The twins were healthy. No degenerative illness. No imminent danger. Just 2 children conditioned by grief, fear, and a system that rewarded keeping them fragile. Daniel broke down in the hospital room that night. Not quietly. Not with dignity. He sank to his knees and sobbed, pressing his forehead to the side of Evan's bed. "I'm so sorry," he whispered over and over. "I thought I was protecting you. I didn't know I was hurting you." Eli reached out and touched his father's hair. "We're okay, Daddy." For the first time in years, Daniel believed it. The machines were removed. The nurses reassigned. The mansion breathed again. Windows opened. Toys returned. School tutors arrived. Laughter echoed through halls that had only known silence. Daniel changed too. He canceled meetings, missed calls, learned how to sit on the floor and listen, learned that presence was not the same as protection, and far more powerful. Weeks later, Clara packed her bag. The twins clung to her legs. "You can't leave," Evan said. "I'm not leaving," she replied, smiling through tears. "I'm just making space for your family." Daniel handed her an envelope thick enough to change her life. She handed it back. "You already paid," she said quietly. "With the truth." As she walked out the front door, Daniel watched from the steps. His sons beside him, sunlight warming their faces. He finally understood. He had spent millions trying to save their lives. But it took one brave nanny to give them their childhood back.